Last year, there were quite a few happy property owners in the New Braunfels area after receiving their property tax appraisals in the mail. Will that property tax party continue into 2024? That is the topic of today's video. If you guys are new here to my channel, thank you so much for hopping aboard, because every week we're trying to put out new content about what it's like to live in New Braunfels. And it was quite nice to live in New Braunfels last year. It's because a number of property owners in this area received good news in the mail in the form of lower property taxes. But will that trend continue this year into 2024? Today, we're going to get some answers. We're going to talk to the director of the Comal Appraisal District, Jeffrey Booker. Jeffrey Booker, thanks so much for having us.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. I would imagine if we're in April right now that we're not sitting talking, you're just kind of buzzing around.
Yes, sir. That's a busy part.
So we're going to get to the million-dollar question. Property owners in the New Braunfels area in Comal County, what can property owners expect? Higher taxes, lower property taxes in 2024? We'll get to that in just a second. But we're going to talk about the process right now. So we're out of January, and January is when your team of appraisers fan out all over the county to start appraising. Is that?
Yeah, we appraise all properties as of January the 1st of each year.
Okay.
So throughout the year, we're going out and picking up new construction and doing inspections. And now we're in the stage where we're running our ratios until we send out our notices in April. So,
okay. And so how does that work? Because we've got 110,000 properties in Comal County, but something tells me we don't have 110,000 appraisers.
We do. We do not. No.
How does that work then? I mean, how do you get to so many properties in 1 month?
So we don't go to every single property every year. Out of 115,000 parcels, we have about 3,000 to 6,000 field inspections we have to do every year for residential properties.
Okay.
We do look at each property once every 3 years. But when it comes to new construction or inspections, we're not going to every property every year.
Right.
Okay.
So how do you then determine, is it like a blanket appraisal for, like, let's say we have a lot of cookie cutter neighborhoods in the New Braunfels area.
Sure.
So does that make it easier to appraise some of these homes?
It does. We still go to them. Obviously, boots on the ground and strapping the house with tape so we can get those measurements more accurate to make sure we have the right square footage. There are some instances where we're not able to get on properties, and we do utilize GIS or aerial pictometry to measure those homes that way.
That's like, wait, I'm grabbing the source right now. What is that all about?
Well, basically, it's just an overview of the house, right, that we get every year, and there's ways we can measure those properties and get the measurements and calculate the square footage.
Okay, so you're basically, how you're coming up with the comparables, you've got 3,000 to 6,000 in the field appraisals, right? And so how are you coming up with those appraisals? Are you using the MLS? Are you using former protest? Are you using, what are you using?
So the district does not have access to MLS. The district relies heavily on the property owners. We send out sales surveys every year.
Okay.
And we get a pretty good response off of the sales surveys. If somebody does come in and protest and say they contact their realtor and say, hey, I need a market workup on my property and have comps, we will use those as well, because those are submitted as evidence to the appraisal review board. So,
Jeffrey, how far back are we going? 6 months, a year when you appraise?
So if we're appraising as of January 1st of 2024, we're gonna look at the entire prior year, 12 months, and we're gonna go into March 31st of the following year. So we look at about 15 months of sales.
Okay. Yep. And so the market has dipped noticeably since the hot years 20 and 21. And part of 2022 was still a little bit on fire, but for the last year and a half, we've been like marinating in this slower market.
Sure.
So, okay, now that leads me to the big question. Your early returns right now, what are you seeing? What can property owners expect in the mail in April when they receive their appraisal?
What we're seeing, the market has slowed down what we're seeing in the amount of information we're getting. But the information we are getting, those sales prices aren't changing. We basically kind of plateaued, right?
Okay.
So we really haven't seen a decrease in the value of properties, but a decrease in the amount of information we're getting, just because the market has slowed down so much.
So when someone receives their property tax appraisal in the mail in April, they shouldn't be nervous, because you said it basically is flatline. on average across the board, on average.
Right. And keep in mind, so there's over 400 neighborhoods within Comal County. So, and we run ratio studies, sales ratio studies on each individual neighborhood. Some could go up, some could go down. Right. It just depends on what the market is in those specific neighborhoods.
All right. And let's talk about that. If somebody's property value goes up, it may be because, well, they added to their house. Maybe it's a deck, sure. Maybe it's a pool. Absolutely. Or an addition. Absolutely. That's also part of it?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Okay. Yep. Pool, deck, add an addition to their home. Any of that is part of that process.
Okay, so it sounds like then that people shouldn't be panicking for the most part in April. So we would, I guess, call that a good year maybe coming up? Yeah, as far as taxes, property taxes.
Well, remember, what we're dealing with here, and I know it comes down, the bottom line comes down to taxes, but we're dealing with the value.
Right.
Obviously, there's two sides. There's the value, and then there's the tax rate that's based off of the value. So what we're focused on doing is being at 100% of market value as of January the 1st. And that can fluctuate between neighborhoods, between areas. It just depends on how the market's working that year in those areas.
So interesting you said, Jeffrey, because you said it's flatlining, which actually reflects what the housing market reports have said for the last 13 months in New Braunfels, 78130 and 78132. It's up, then it's down. It's up, then it's down, but it's somewhere around the middle. It never goes up too much. It never, I mean, we've descended quite a bit from our median home price high 2 years ago was $398 for 78130, but it's still around $350, $355. So it's gone lower than that, but then it's come back up. So to your point, it's reflective of that too.
Well, and take, you said flatlining. So remember, we're still going through our analysis. So we still have about a month worth of work to do with our ratios to see what the values are actually doing, excuse me. But keep in mind, I think you get a little bit more information than I get. I'm sure you know Texas is a non-disclosure state, so we don't get all the sales that happen. We base our values based off of the information we receive and try to do the best we can with it. So.
That's important to note, because if you're coming in here, we've been through the protest process 3 times last year. You may have, and we'll get to that a little bit later. I don't want to give everything away right now, but you're going to have stuff in your hand. But keep in mind, the county is dealing with limited information, but you also send out surveys, right?
Yep, sales surveys, yes, sir, every year.
Now, that's important to note, because a lot of you watching may say, none of your business how much I paid for my house. That's fine, that's true, but when it comes to getting true appraised values and accurate comparables, that stuff is important. I'd have to imagine.
Absolutely, yes, sir. The more information we have, the better, which makes what we produce as accurate as it can be, right? So.
Okay, so you guys are mad and you haven't disclosed your information, which is your right. Just remember, it helps to disclose information when you're protesting as many comparables as possible. That's what you want to have, either the protester or the county. You want all that information in hand at the time.
Absolutely.
All right, so what if somebody wants to protest, they get their appraised value in the mail in April, and they say, man, this is not right. What if somebody wants to protest? Can they protest, and how do they do that?
Absolutely. So if they receive an appraisal notice in the mail from the district, included in that will be the actual protest form. And they can fill that form out. They can mail it back to us. We have an e-file portal where they can file online, or they can come in the office and file. Once they get that notice, the deadline to file is May 15th or 30 days from when they receive the notice. So tons of options, and we're here to help.
If it's May 16th or 17th or 18th or 19th, they're out of luck?
If they're past the deadline, yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, let me rephrase that. If we didn't mail it out until May 1st, say we sent that one out late for some reason, it's 30 days from that date. Right.
Okay. Thank you so much for that clarification. That helps out. Let's read now we're going to kind of pull an example here. We have a 2023 notice of appraised value document here. So so people don't freak out when they receive this, how should people read this? So can you go from the top number to the bottom number? When they get this in the mail, how are they supposed to read
Sure.
this?
So it's going to break everything out. Structure and improvement value, that's obviously going to be anything that's on the property that's not the land. So home, pool, detached improvements. Then it's going to list the land value. Then we're going to total everything up. And in this scenario, both of them match. There's total market value, and then there's homestead cap value. So the assessed value on this is going to be what's listed between the two of these. But the market value and the homesteaded cap value could be different if the value of the property goes up more than 10% in 1 year. That's where the homestead is going to come in to protect the property owner. So you would be, the value, the tax base would be based off of the homestead cap value, not the market value.
So which number should I be looking at when that comes in April? Which number do I look at to look and say, okay, this is what my house is, this is what my property is appraised for?
So always remember what the appraisal district is trying to do. Set the value at 100% of market value.
Right.
So you're going to want to look at the line item that says total market value. If you think your value should be lower than that, then absolutely let's file a protest and see what we can do, or if we have something wrong.
Now, is that total market value after homestead?
No, no, sir. Well, it depends.
Okay.
So we're going to send out the notice, and the total market value is going to say, this is what we feel the property is worth. Right. Then we have homestead cap. That's going to be your taxable value after your exemptions are in place.
Okay.
So,
all right. And there is a 10% rule. Can you kind of get into that?
Yep. So if it's a homesteaded property, the appraisal district cannot raise the assessed value or the taxable value more than 10% from 1 year to the next.
Okay.
The market value could go higher. It could go up 20%.
Right.
But what the assessed value is from 1 year to the next maxes out at 10%.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Excellent. Unless you want to pay this one. Go.
No, I'm good.
All right. So the property owner comes in, wants to protest their market value. Should they just show up and say, hey, look, without anything in hand and say, look, this is what I think my property is worth this? Or
right.
Should they be prepared when they come in? What's
Absolutely. Obviously, anybody can come in, and if somebody doesn't have any evidence, we're still going to present evidence. We're going to send that evidence to the property owner before their hearing date and time. And sometimes our evidence does show we need to lower the value some, not all the time. But being prepared is always better. Get comments from your local realtor, do your own research, take photos of your property if something's wrong. You had a cracked foundation, your roof's leaking.
Sure.
And all of those things we can take into consideration. When it comes to issues with the home, the important thing to remember is we are appraisers, but we're not contractors, right?
Right.
So an estimate on what it's going to cost to fix something that's wrong with your home is great evidence to bring it to the board so we know how we need to adjust the property with what's wrong with it.
Okay. So you said property owners who protest can request evidence then based on what?
They can request evidence. What we're doing here, though, is we're sending the evidence to everybody.
Okay, so, without them checking off a box or anything, you're just doing that automatic?
Yep, we're sending it to everybody. Yep.
Okay. All right, and so they have that. They're looking at that before they come in, or should be anyway.
Yep, they'll get it 14 days before their hearing date and time.
Okay. So we talked about how you gather comparables, which is, you can't overstate that because it's not the same as real estate agents. We have our fingers at 3 MLS systems in the area.
Sure.
And those are going to be the most accurate on our side.
Right.
And you have a limited pool.
Sure.
So it never hurts to repeat that one because I think that's something that people have to understand. So let's say someone files for a protest, but the protest date is not, it's still pending and pending through January 31st when people have to pay their property taxes.
Right.
So if that protest has not yet been heard, then is the property owner obligated to pay those protesting taxes?
No, sir. So What we'll do is we work closely with the tax office. We notify them of those accounts, and those bills aren't sent out until the hearing is heard by the appraisal review board.
Okay.
And then it'll be sent out afterwards.
All right. Now let's talk about the board.
Yep.
What is the board? Are they professionals? Do this for a living, or what does that entail?
So I wouldn't say professionals. They're all local citizens throughout Comal County. There's a range of individuals. We've had farmers on that board. We've had realtors on the board. We've got a guy that used to be a tax agent in a different county on the board. There's a big span of different experience.
Sure.
So
should people be prepared if they're protesting something and they've got comps in hand and the board is asking you, well, what do you think the value should be?
Right.
They probably shouldn't stare at you blank. You probably should have an answer, right?
Have an opinion of value and having the evidence to back that up. Because what the appraisal review board is going to do is weigh evidence. They're going to weigh what the district presents, and they're going to weigh what the property owner presents. And based off of that evidence, they're going to come up to what they feel the fair market or 100% of market value is for that property based off of the evidence. So
there's two different hearings, informal and a formal hearing, right?
So there's an informal meeting.
Right.
And the reason that's important is because the meeting doesn't have to be posted. The ARB hearings, that's a formal hearing. We have to post that publicly and let the public know when the board is convening to meet to hear those hearings.
So let's talk about the informal. What happens there?
What happens there is it's basically what we just said. It's a very informal process. Property owner comes in and sits down across from an appraiser, shows them their evidence. They talk through their property. If there's changes or something that's wrong that can be corrected or made, we definitely make that offer. If there is no agreement in that informal meeting, then you proceed on to the formal hearing.
Okay. Yeah. And what percentage of cases resolved are through informal?
At least 3/4. I'm going to say last year we had about we had over 28,000 protests last year, and the majority of those were settled out informally. So, yeah.
Okay. So thank you for all that. Now let's help people keep their taxes down.
Okay.
I don't think, Jeffrey, a lot of people know about Homestead. I mean, there are a lot of people who know, but there's still a number of people in the New Braunfels area in Comal County, they're going to look at this and like, wait a second, Homestead, what? They've been in their house for 5 or 6 years. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Applying for the Homestead exemption on your primary home. How do people do that?
So the form's online on our website. We're happy to help. They can come in. We actually have an online forms portal where they can do it online and they can upload their driver's license, all the documentation they need to upload. But we're happy to help if they want to come in and sit with them across the counter and fill it out.
All right. So let's say I'm an investor. Can I apply for a Homestead?
No, sir. It has to be your primary residence.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So great point there. So let's talk about the Homestead exemptions. What are some of the main exemptions that people can apply for? So
there's Homestead, there's disabled veteran, a disabled person, over 65. Over 65 has to follow your primary residence, so you have to have your Homestead to get your over 65 exemption. But all of that, we're here to assist in the office, and all of that information is on our website.
And we got a raise last year from 60,000 to 100,000. The general Homestead exemption went from 60 to 100,000.
From 40,000
from 40,000 to
40,000.
So $60,000 raise. And I think that's been helping a lot of people as well.
Yeah, it's making a big yeah.
And one bonus in this area, if you live within the boundaries of Comal Independent School District,
yep.
There's an additional 20%. It's crazy.
It is
20% local school Homestead exemption.
Right. Yes, sir. So it'll take, you'll have your market value minus your exemptions, and then an additional 20% off of your assessed or taxable value because of that local option.
All right. So let's say easy math here. Your market value is 400,000.
Right.
Take the 20%. You're down to 320 now. It's 80,000. Take the 100 grand off for the increased general Homestead exemption. That's 220. So 220 becomes your new assessed taxable
value. Yes,
so that's what you're going to be taxed off of.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. That's
That's good.
Yeah, that's what they're set up to benefit the property owners, right?
Right.
So yeah, it is good. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about this very unique thing we have in New Braunfels. It's called new construction homes.
Sure. Sure.
Because it's something to consider, because sometimes you look at closing disclosures, you're ready to close on a new build,
Right.
and your property taxes will be like $500.
Right.
And someone's like, hey, this is great.
Sure.
But can you explain that process and why it's so low and why it won't be low in the future?
So we kind of talked about this a little bit, but typically from what I've seen, when those taxes are estimated on a new sale or new construction, the taxes are based off of the prior year. Well, the prior year obviously didn't have that home there. It was just the land. So that 500 you're talking about is was the taxes due for a vacant lot, where obviously, obviously now we have new construction, and that's going to change the tax base for that property.
So depending on let's say the house is at, when your appraisers go out and appraise in January, and you're putting your eyes on something that is maybe at frame stage, maybe it's dirt, maybe it's just been sheetrocked, whatever, not finished yet. You're taking that house value and comparing it to another house, similar house in the same stage.
So yes and no.
Okay.
So basically, we have a cost approach that we look at first, and we use Marshall and Swift. That's a nationally publicated source, and we update that yearly. Our schedule is yearly based off of that.
Okay.
So we start with cost. So if you're building your home and it's only 50% complete as of January the 1st, that's how we're going to set that home based off of what we saw with boots on the ground. Once that home's 100% complete, we're still going to keep updating the cost every year, but we're going to test that against the sales in the neighborhood and see if there are any adjustments we need to make for what the market is doing.
All right.
Okay.
It's a lot of good information.
Yeah, good.
This is good stuff. No, I mean, I think people hopefully will watch this, and if they have any questions, they'll have all the answers right now. But if they have any other questions, how do they contact you or the office here?
We're here. We're open. We're always willing to help people. Give us a call, but we'll sit down and walk through anything with anybody.
It sounds like more good news will be hitting the mail this April when you receive your property tax appraisals for Comal County. Market's flatlined, as the director was saying, so we should be in good shape, but don't expect to see any real spikes in property taxes in 2024. But it's going to differ for everybody. If you add it to your house, the value is going to go up naturally. Does this information help you guys out? Also, homesteading, if you haven't done that, please get to it, because it saves you money on your property taxes. And if you have any questions about what you heard today, what we talked about today, please reach out to me, or you can reach out to the Comal Appraisal District. Their contact information is in the description below. And if you are thinking about moving to the New Braunfels area or selling your house here, I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can email me, you can call me, or you can shoot me a text. As always, thank you so much for watching our videos, and we'll see you on the next one.